sorry for the background noise. I'm doing this while I'm pulling the vacuum on the AC system. Um, what I've got here is this is of course is an 85. 85. They added this vacuum. What you want to call it? Vacuum amplifier, and it hooks up to the Alda, and it helps give you a better shift, basically. And so mine worked. I had nice, good shifts, and then my shifts went to crap. Basically, it was I was getting shift flares and stuff like that. And so I started checking. I was like, well, I must have a vacuum leak somewhere. Started checking, and so the way this works, you have a vacuum input right here, and then on this side, it goes to the transmission. So I'm just gonna use my glove. These gloves work good for plugging a vacuum. You can see it doesn't hold a vacuum. So, went on eBay and bought this one. Look how nice that one looks. So we're going to test this one. They said it was a good one, but you never know. So we'll plug this side. And it's holding a vacuum. So what we've got is, so this is the line that goes to the transmission, and basically before, this line came over and it plugged into the transmission side, and then over here, I don't know if you can see, we've got a line that went over to go into here. And so when this failed, I bypassed it. And so I'll double check my vacuum diagram, but I'm pretty sure that's all I did, which puts it kind of to like the 85 or 84 and older. They didn't have these. What you've got is reposition you. Alright, so now y'all can see better. So this is how, this right here is a it's a vacuum bleed valve. It bleeds off vacuum based on the throttle input, and that is so you don't, basically the transmission, it needs to know how much basically how much throttle you're giving it. And so the throttle, how much throttle you're giving it, moves this valve and determines how much vacuum it bleeds off. If you didn't have this, you would have, 20 inches of vacuum all the time. So how's the transmission gonna know? It's gonna think you're full throttle or whatever, basically. So this bleeds it off, and I would think the more throttle you give it, the less it bleeds off. I don't know that for sure, but I'm just guessing. I kind of think about it like I'm more familiar with like the C10, and so it has a vacuum modulator as well as this transmission. And so on a gas engine, you're going to make a lot of vacuum, idling and maybe at a steady speed, but if you're wide open throttle, you're not going to make much vacuum. And so that's kind of how it knows how to shift, or how it not knows how to shift, but that's what determines how it shifts. I guess that's a better way to describe it. So what we do is, like I said, I'll double check on the wire, on the, not wiring, but the vacuum diagram. But this one, I think we go to the vacuum side of the vacuum amplifier, and then we'll take the other end of it that goes to the transmission and put it over there. So let me, I'm going to need some vacuum line, and then we'll get this thing hooked up. All right. Yeah, there was a lot more to it than that. So what you've got this vacuum switchover valve right here on the firewall, and it's got 3 lines that run into it. It's got one that runs out the bottom, it's got one that runs out the side, and it's got one that runs out the top. The side and the top get tied together. So they come in, I've got a 4-way T right here. So they come in together. One goes over with one of these dampeners over and goes to the vacuum control valve. The other goes over to the first port here on your vacuum check valve. This is not all hooked up the best. I think in the other car I've got some brand new ones of these. We're just hooking this up for right now. I'm running out of daylight, so I'm just getting it hooked up. And then we're gonna have to clean up the vacuum stuff once I get the door locks, stuff like that working, because I've got a lot of plug stuff that goes inside. Actually everything that goes in the car is plugged because it all has a vacuum leak. So at some point we're gonna have to redo all this. But so that's how that side of it hooks up. The bottom of that vacuum control valve goes over to your vacuum control valve port right here, and then this one goes over to the ALDA, the port that goes on the side of the ALDA. And so that's how this thing hooks up. And like I said, you've got the one that goes over to the transmission with another little dampener thing in it, and then the vacuum source for it. Need to go look that up. I don't have that hooked up. The vacuum source, let me go look real quick. Okay, so we got it back like it should be. Now this is all a mess, or it looks all a mess, but this is all new vacuum line. Problem is these hard lines aren't quite long enough. You know, ideally you would just have this split, this T coming straight off of here, and then these would go into it, but it's not long enough. So we did it like this. It'll work. But yeah, all new vacuum lines, so we shouldn't have any leaks or anything. It's just not, it doesn't look the best. So for the vacuum side of this, you tee off of the second port on the check valve. This one I've got, the only source I've got hooked up is the cutoff, the vacuum shut off for the engine that goes into the car. That's what that is. And then over here I've got one that's going to come up and go into it, and then this one will go on the transmission side. So I'll set up time lapse and we'll get this thing swapped over. Alright, I can't use the light on time lapse, so we're just going to try to swap this out real quick. It's too dark to not have a light. As y'all could probably see. Well, I probably won't include that. I did a short little time lapse as I'm doing like the first screw. But yeah, it was just too dark. Now I can't get to these other screws on here, so I'm having to undo this whole thing. So you've got, all we really need to get off is this one and that one. So now that I've got a little more room to get in here, let me get a wrench. That's an 8. Let's see. I think we can at least get this one out. I don't know about this one. Nope. Alright, y'all see what I'm doing here. I'm going to hook the vacuum lines up, and then, so we've got our new one, well, not new, but, so that's going to go here. And I like this. Because that's a boost line, they include that. So I'm going to have to get some pliers. I'm going to go ahead and hook that up and then just re-bolt this thing up. Alright, got it in. Kind of rerouted the transmission line coming over there and kind of tuck it in like that. Ideally, we'll get some 90s, but that'll work for now. So yeah, coming over from here, first port, it's over to here, the vacuum side, then the transmission side goes over with the little damper over to the transmission. Like I said, you've got one that runs over to the ALDA, and then the VCV port on here goes over to the bottom port on the vacuum control valve. Is it the bottom? Is it the bottom? Bottom? No, it's the misstated. It's the side port. The side port goes to the vacuum. The side port of the vacuum control valve goes to the transducer or whatever, vacuum amplifier. And then the green, which is the top, and the bottom get tied together and go to here. And then that tees in, goes to the first port and to the bleed off valve. There. I'm going to review over my diagram, but I think that's it. Yeah, so the side port, yeah, it's the side port. I think in the clip when I was explaining all, I think I said the bottom port, but it's the side port. So the side port vacuum control valve goes to the vacuum amplifier, and then the top and the bottom get teed together. Yeah, so done. We'll have to see if our shifts have improved. Hopefully they have, and they should. It worked well hooked up like this with the old one until it started leaking, so we should be good. So thanks for watching.